I'm Renee Watt. You may know me on Instagram as Rainbow Glitter Star. I also am a writer of horoscopes. So if you read your daily horoscopes at astrology.com, that's me. I am a full-time psychic, full-time witch, full-time astrologer, and I'm here to talk to you about your own psychic abilities because I do believe that everyone has some form of intuition stirring within them, and it can be really beautiful to harness these skills, harness these gifts, and bring a little bit more magic into your life. I think that a lot of people here are not only interested about hearing what experiences other people have had, but figuring out how to cultivate their own experiences. And I think that the more in touch you are with your psychic abilities, the easier it is to sort of do that. It brings a certain level of awareness when there are other presences around you. It also, I believe, can give you a lot of leverage when it comes to communicating with the other side. I'll just put it out there, and this might be a story for another time, but I have 100% had telepathic communications and interactions with someone who I believe was an alien in human form. I love that I can just be here and say that to you guys because you're all here for that. So to give a little bit of context about my background, I got my first tarot deck when I was 10 years old. I started practicing witchcraft when I was 12, having seances. But it wasn't really until I would say 27 years old, right around my Saturn return, that I had a profound psychic awakening and really started to understand how the other side kind of reaches for us, and knowing how the other side is reaching for you is like the difference between having your phone on Do Not Disturb or ringing at the loudest setting. And so I will say that this isn't necessarily something that you can be like, oh, okay, I have vivid dreams, I'm clairvoyant, now I'm going to go tour a haunted building and see an apparition. This is going to be something that is the most helpful when it becomes part of your lifestyle. And what I mean by that is trying to bring awareness to your own emotions, your own body, your own intuition. It can be very easy to, when things get busy or stressful, to go on autopilot or to sort of disconnect from our physical bodies because, you know, we're on the go. So we aren't able to really acknowledge if we're having a backache or if we're having a headache, or we have to shut off our feelings because it's just too much to deal with at the moment. And I understand that there's a time and a place to sort of compartmentalize, but you need to be able to create a space for yourself where you can let all of these pieces, your physical, your mental, and your emotional body, sort of live together, because that's the only true way to know yourself from other people, from other energy. I'm sure there are a lot of empaths watching this, or people who have wondered if they're an empath. And, you know, what that will look like is almost, you know, to give a common example, but general example, say you are watching a performance and you know that your friend is about to get on stage, and you know that your friend is nervous to get on stage, and you're in the audience, you're not the performer, you're not having this experience, but oh my God, the second they call your friend's name, you're just like, you get nervous, you get physically nervous, even though mentally you know it's not you. And true, you're emotionally invested in this person, but it's almost like you are picking up on what they might physically be going through, or you could be taking it for them. A really common thing for empaths is to sort of carry the burden of other people's emotions. It's like being a healer. It's like you're sort of taking in their energy, and, you know, hopefully you know how to process it and release it. But where problems can arise is when you don't really know how to process it or how to block it or how to release it. And I promise this is all going to come together in a way that gives you a better understanding of where you're at intuitively and how it can help you. But I just want to create a baseline of sort of, what these experiences might be looking like for, each individual person. So pivoting from that a little bit, there's going to be several different ways that you can pick up on psychic information. I mentioned clairvoyance. This can be, I'm clairvoyant. I see little flashes, orbs, little shadowy things. Every once in a while, I'll see a figure. It's rare, even for me, who is, this is my full-time gig. And, everyone's going to have varying degrees of what any psychic ability looks like for them, no matter how much they train. So there's clairvoyance, which is when you can see something with your eyes, or so clearly in your mind's eye that it's sort of layered over reality. And a strong indicator of having this ability is if you have a lot of dreams. And if you do have a lot of dreams and they are vivid, I do recommend writing them down, especially if you have a tendency to experience deja vu, because you may be dreaming things before they happen. I'm going to cut that short there, but I could talk about that for a really long time. So then there's also claircognizance, which is when you just sort of know something to be true. This could be a gut instinct. This could be just sort of like you feel like a message, like a moment of enlightenment, or something was pushed into your head. It's that sort of like, it can be that nagging feeling that like something is going to happen, but not quite knowing what it is. There's also clairsentience, which is similar to being empathic in a lot of ways, because you will have physical shifts and physical feelings. This may come through as feeling almost like your arm hurts. Like you've heard stories of like there's a twin and one twin breaks their arm and all of a sudden the twin who didn't break their arm hurts. Like that could be an example of that. And where this could give you information in a paranormal setting is if you are, for example, like conducting a seance or trying to communicate with ghosts. Well, if all of a sudden you're having, the sense of acid reflux, that could give you information about physical ailments that the person who's trying to connect with you had while they were alive. I was giving a seance and I had extreme acid reflux, but it felt more like an asphyxiation. And it turned out there was someone who was coming through who had overdosed and, vomited and choked. So it's important to sort of know where you're at physically before you enter a paranormal space, because if you have a physical shift, that can be giving you a message. That can be a communication that's happening. And if you're just one of those people who doesn't listen to what their body is telling them and is just kind of like a tough it out type of person, that's not going to be helpful for you when you're trying to pick up information from the other side. And it's also really important that when you are not trying to pick up information from the other side, that you are in tune with your own body, because again, it's going to let you more easily pick up on the fact when something is off and it's not coming from you. This is why in any sense of a psychic ability, knowing yourself is so important, because you need to be able to know where you're at emotionally. You need to be able to know where your energy levels are at, so that when an entity or an alien or a ghost or who knows what is trying to come through, you can tell that that's happening. It's easier to understand, and it's easier to identify what that outside information is, because it's not like a jumble of feelings and emotions. This is mine. What is this? I hope this is making sense. Clairtangency is being able to pull information through objects. If you're a person who walks into an old building and like gets a vibe for the building, it could be really useful to practice holding, maybe jewelry that belonged to an ancestor, or if you're someone who definitely enjoys meditating with crystals, because the crystals do change something about your experience, or it definitely creates a shift within you, then you might have clairtangency. Again, you know, putting your hand up to a wall when you're investigating a building, or even holding your palms up and trying to pull an energy, trying to pull an information from the ether, like that can feed you a lot. So much of having psychic experiences is being open to it, opening yourself up to it, and then creating channels where like, okay, I can receive this way, or I've had messages this way before, so I'm going to try pulling at this thread. If you are going to practice clairtangency, I recommend working with your non-dominant hand when you're going to be holding an object. This isn't like a diehard rule by any means. I don't really believe in rules when it comes to psychic ability or paranormal experiences or witchcraft, but I do think it's a nice theory that we pull in energy with our non-dominant hand and we cast, we put out into the world with our dominant hand. So if you are ever like meditating on an intention and you wanted to sort of like write down what that intention is, you know, I'm pulling in money and putting out like my success. That is another way that you can sort of play with this psychic ability. That's not necessarily even I'm out in the paranormal trenches, like trying to like stir up some crap with Bigfoot. You know, I don't know why you would want to stir up with crap with Bigfoot, but I don't know, thrill seekers, you know, get your kicks where you're going to get them. Okay. Clairaudience is hearing messages. For me, I never hear a whisper outside of my ear. It's like I sense a presence around me, but it's like words are being pushed into my brain or sentences being pushed into my brain. And it can almost be hard to differentiate like internal dialogue versus like clairaudient message. One thing that I have found to be kind of helpful from discerning the two, messages that aren't happening from me, I tend to feel like, you know, when we access different parts of the brain, you know, like we look up, when we're thinking, we look up to the right, or at least that's what I do, or, you know, we look in the corners of our eyes. It's sort of like, where in your brain did it feel like that message was coming from? Like if it feels like it's like been pushed it through the top of the brain or even through the side, but if it just feels like it's coming from somewhere that's not necessarily like the natural pathways, neural pathways that like your thought process would channel through. And if any of this is, you know, conjuring questions from you, I really encourage you to write them down. And you can reach out to me on Instagram. You can reach out to me through my website, rainbowglitterstar.com, and shoot me any follow-up messages that you have about what I'm talking about. I'm not done talking, but I just like felt like I wanted you to know that it's okay to reach out to me with questions if you have them. Clairaudient is also interesting because it could be a situation where you are like thinking, like a song gets stuck in your head, like a random song gets stuck in your head. You don't know where it came from. And then you'll like hear that really obscure random song at the grocery store or in your friend's car or something. And I feel like when those parallels happen, it's like that could be a message from the other side. It could be, you know, someone's song, someone's favorite song, or the lyrics might have special meaning. And this all kind of draws back to the fact that like being intuitive, strengthening your intuition, using it to have more paranormal experiences starts with this lifestyle shift where you're bringing more mindfulness into your interaction with the outside world and with yourself and with other people. And just like noticing how sensitive, yeah, like you might be a total baddie, like you might be the toughest baby in the bunch, but you're still sensitive and you still can tap into things. And just because you're toughing out like outside noise doesn't mean it's not there and then you can't tap into it. And eventually, like I found that people with psychic abilities who are just like block, 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 no, will have periods of extreme exhaustion. And this like also a thing for empaths who like know they're empathic but don't necessarily know how to clear things, which I will talk about. It can be like for 2 or 3 days you feel great, and then it's like you are wiped out for 2 or 3 days. If you feel really drained after social interaction, if you feel really drained after going to a building that gives you a weird feeling, like this is how it's not just like, oh, I had a psychic experience, oh, I had an intuitive notion, and then it was gone. Like it carries on throughout the days and weeks. And so this is, again, like it's so important to give space for your physical, mental, and emotional body to make peace with each other, to find a state of relaxation, to find a clearing, so that you can sort of like bring your aura and your energy back to this neutral state, or even just like this state of home that's true to you, a state of truth. That is going to be really, really helpful for managing your gifts as you try to strengthen them. There's also clairgustance, which is sort of tasting things. This is something that a lot of people have during paranormal experiences where they're like, oh, my mouth tastes like metallic, or my mouth tastes like blood or whatever. That can, again, give you an indication who's reaching out to you. How does this apply to, you know, the message they're trying to give? And follow-up questions can be really helpful. Like, oh, like I feel like I taste blood in my mouth. Like, is there a presence here that, you know, had trauma that, you know, towards the end of their life? Please give me a sign. And then that is sort of how that carries through. So, you know, in this instance, I guess you would have whatever paranormal tools that you would use on your expedition. And then you have this sort of like psychic thread to pull at, and then you can use your tools for confirmation. Like if you do torch work with flashlights, or if you use dowsing rods or a pendulum. Then there's also going to be clairolfaction, and this is going to be the sense of smell. So I don't know if you've noticed a theme, but pretty much any physical sense that we have comes through psychically as well. And I mean, I really love when this happens when it comes to like remembering the perfume of a loved one, or the way it smelled when your grandmother baked, you know, Thanksgiving dinner, pie, whatever. But it can also, you know, give you an indication of, are you dealing with, I don't like to get scary and be like, oh, there's a demon, because I don't like, it's just not my vibe to be scared of entities, or to like, oh, this demon has all this power now because I'm afraid of it because it's a demon. But, you know, smelling sulfur, that could be an indication of something. Smelling cherries, if you work with the fae. And there's not going to be a baseline for what smells mean to any particular person. So again, this is where it's like, what is symbolic to you? If a smell or a sense, or, you know, you get a chill, an emotional shift, if something like that comes up for you, you know, whether or not you're chasing a paranormal experience or not, it can be really helpful after that to say, well, what's the message? And then what's the first thing that comes to your head? So now that I've talked about sort of what the psychic senses are, I wanted to sort of get into the realm of the importance of clearing and blocking. So for clearing, it's really simple. It doesn't have to be a big ordeal. I have found that when it comes to any occult realm that you play in, like the more serious and intense you are about your process, like the more work it's going to be, which is like fine if you like that, like good for you. I like to get things done quick. So, you know, for a cleansing, it could just be, okay, I'm in the shower, and for a couple of minutes, I'm going to mindfully inhale the steam. I'm going to feel the warmth of the water on my back. I'm going to actively relax my muscles. I'm going to visualize myself inhaling white light, exhaling like black smoke. inhaling white light, exhaling gray smoke, inhaling white light, exhaling white smoke. I'm cleansed. Of course, there's going to be times where you might need a little bit of a heavier cleanse, but I just don't want you to get into your head about like developing psychically being an ordeal, because it doesn't have to be. Like, yes, profound moments are going to happen. And there will be like super crazy highs and then some weird lows as well when you're developing your psychic abilities. And if you are getting an energetic low, or if you had a really intense experience that rocked you to your core, then you might want to do a little bit more. You might want to cleanse your house. You may want to do a salt bath. Baking soda in your bath is also really great. Aromatherapy, working with aromatherapy. You could go get a Reiki session, but it's just a matter of acknowledging when there is energetic buildup. If you have a tendency to get like little headaches where your third eye is, or the top of your head, things start to feel heavy, or if you're just starting to sort of like lose a little bit of your luster, then you might want to just focus on, okay, I need a little bit more of a thorough cleansing. I need to do a longer meditation session. And I will say, like, I hate to be the psychic witch lady who tells you how important meditation is, but it is probably the most important tool for developing your psychic abilities. Crystals, candles, rituals, that's all great. But what it comes down to the most, I think, is meditation. If you don't have time to do a big, you can't jump in the shower and cleanse your aura that way. I just think that's a nice thing to do like every night for clearing out just whatever you picked up during the day. But if you are in a social situation and you are feeling overwhelmed and overstimulated, I would try to pay attention to what do the bottoms of your feet feel like, because that's instantly going to ground you. And then inhaling, again, this white light, like I can visualize, I can imagine that I'm inhaling a white light right now, even though I'm looking into my camera. And I'm, if I'm having a conversation with someone, you can hold eye contact and still focus on your breath. Focusing on your breath is like, if your breath can move on, your mind can move on. If your breath can move on, whatever message you're picking up on that you don't have time to decode can move on. Try to almost imagine that whatever you're picking up on that you don't necessarily want to hold in that moment is sort of draining down through your body, through the bottoms of your feet and into the earth. And just, okay, I'm inhaling this shift. I'm inhaling cleansing energy. I'm leaning into my breath to sort of control where my heart, mind, intuition is going. If you are picking up on energy that you is coming in a little bit more intense, you can also just say in your head, like, return to sender. If it's a bad feeling, you could say return to sender with a little lesson, or return to sender with love. It's all about how you're feeling in the moment and what your relationship is to this sort of like mindful intuition game. The other thing that can be so helpful and I think is so important for developing your psychic abilities is learning how to block. Something that I had to work on a lot when I had my psychic awakening was just figuring out how to not pick up on other people's energy, especially if you're in a close relationship to them. And that's not always going to be easy to do. If you live in the same house as someone and you're both working, one person's stress can suddenly become your stress, or if you're at the office with someone and someone next to you is stressed out, then all of a sudden you're physically getting tense and starting to get wound up because of what someone near you is going through. That's when it's important to just sort of be like, oh, this is happening. I don't accept this. I am blocking this. Black tourmaline is really nice if you need like a crystal, if you want a tool. Wearing jewelry that you consider to be protective, that's voodoo, by the way. That's all going to be really helpful for blocking, or just saying to the universe, like, hey, I don't want this energy right now. And you might have to shift focus to something else right away. I found that anytime you can come back into your body and be present and notice details that are around you, like, you know, the shadow of leaves on a sidewalk, or even just sort of the different details in a plant that's on your desk. That's going to help you come back from the psychic place into the earthy place. And the more you learn to do that just throughout your daily life, the easier it's going to be to open yourself up in paranormal situations, or when you're trying to seek guidance from unseen forces, or even manifest through the ether. It's all about understanding that there is energy that flows within and around you, and those things aren't always separate. And so knowing how to protect your energy is important, but also knowing how to let your guard down and call things in is also going to be very helpful. You know, asking for psychic experiences, asking for, I would like to see orbs. Again, if you think you may be clairvoyant, say to your guides, I want to see orbs. I'm ready for more. Asking for what you want psychically more times than not will come through. I've noticed that a lot of times with the universe, you know, it wants to make sure you can handle something before it gives it to you, and asking for a sign or asking for an experience can be really helpful for that. Yeah, I feel like that is a lot that I've just given to you guys, and I hope this was helpful. I just want to reiterate that it's about developing your psychic abilities so that you can see how things shift when you're in a paranormal environment, or even just sort of like having that ability to pick up on energy when you ask for it. You know, is there a presence here? Are there aliens around? I just want to say, like, when I had I feel like I left such a cliffhanger when I was like, oh yeah, I like telepathically communicated with an alien. I'm not going to tell the whole story because I'll be here for a minute. But the way that came about was I had kind of been asking the universe, like, I want to meet an alien. I want some weird shit to happen. I hope you guys are cool with the S-bomb. I've been trying to be so good with my potty mouth. It's my natural state. But where that came through was I asked the universe, like, I want to have a telepathic communication with an alien, because like that's just like a normal thing you say to the universe. And I crossed paths with a man who just had very different energy. I feel like I was able to pick up on the fact that he had very different energy because I've done a lot of meditation and a lot of psychic work and have developed my intuition. The more you work on yours, the more you're going to have this sort of like psychic antenna go up. So anyway, in my mind, I asked him, like, I think you're an alien. If you are and you can hear me, wink. And he winked. And this went on for the entire night, where I would do this nonverbal call and he would respond. So I would nonverbally in my mind ask, like, hey, like, you know, raise your right hand. And he was like pretending to dance to the music. And the looks that he was giving me anytime I asked him were just that extra cue that I needed to know that something was going on. And, you know, for that to settle in and for it to become real, like, I had to ask several times for him to sort of, again, interact with this call and response with me. And it has happened with different people since then. And had I not been open to that experience, had I not asked for it, I don't think it ever would have happened, because I wouldn't have even thought about how to orchestrate that, or how to communicate with it, or how to connect with the situation. And that was something that happened, like, real talk, at the strip club I was working at. Like, it can happen anywhere. I was not, like, you know, in the forest, like, surrounded by, like, sound baths. Like, no, it can happen in a skeezy, it wasn't a skeezy, but it can happen at a strip club. It can happen anywhere. Just be open, be adventurous. Don't feed anything your fear. The second you're afraid of an experience, the more intense it's going to get. It's fun to, like, have a seance and, like, woo, woo, get all giddy. But if you're like, oh my God, I think I'm cursed, it followed me home, like you're totally screwing yourself over. Trust that you're strong. Trust that energy is not going to attach to you if you don't want it to. If something happens where you are feeling like you couldn't shake it, you know, talk to more spiritual, tapped in people. But what I would say first is like, try to remove that fear from your own disposition. How we feed energy is going to give it so much leverage. So if we're feeding an energy or an entity that might want to like have some fun screwing with you, which like, I'm like, that sounds fun. Sounds fun to be a ghost and scare people. I like to scare people as a human, like jumping out of a closet. Like, could you imagine having ghost powers and doing that? Like, I'm going to spend at least part of my afterlife doing that. But if someone doesn't like react to that, you know, if someone's not going to feed you the fear, you're not going to keep trying to jump out and scare that person. So I hope you catch my drift with that. Don't feed anything your fear. Trust that when you call on your protection, it's working. Trust in your strength and your ability to draw boundaries and explore. Ask the universe to bring you some crazy stuff. And if you're not sure if something is a paranormal experience or a psychic experience, ask for confirmation. Develop a relationship with your own spirit guides where, you know, you ask for a symbol like, hey, let me know you're around. And oh, all of a sudden there's like, you know, a blue jay or whatever sitting on your porch the next day. Oh, maybe that was a sign. I would like confirmation that that was a sign. And then the next day, the blue jay's back. You know, stuff like that. It's okay to ask for confirmation if you're not sure. It's okay to be, you know, discerning. I encourage that you're discerning. I actually think it's better to ask for confirmation instead of like flying off the handle anytime you think that like the universe says you've just met the love of your life or that you're gonna make $1 million or something like that. Like, it's really easy because it is so magical and it is so fun. It really is easy to become a little bit unhinged with psychic ability. I definitely, like when I had my psychic awakening, had some real unhinged moments. So just my only thing that I would add outside of that is like, don't lose your pragmatic or your logical mind just because you are dabbling in some weird stuff that defies explanation. What it comes down to at the end of the day is we're still in human form and we're still on a physical plane. That doesn't mean we can't thin the veil and see what's happening right before us and right on top of us in a way where skeptical people might not be able to. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm most active on Instagram at Rainbow Glitter Star. Please read your daily horoscopes at astrology.com. My website is rainbowglitterstar.com. I want to give a special thank you to Ryan. Ryan, thank you for having me. This has been a joy. I can't wait to see all the speakers. And because she's so cute, I'm just going to give you a little close-up of Voodoo. Oh yeah, and animals can totally tip you off if there's like something in your house or like an entity or spirit in your house. So if you have like a dog or a cat that likes to stare at the wall or is looking at something that you can't see, try to get to their level. That actually happened with Voodoo and I once. Again, I'm just like full of all the psychic stories. Follow me on Instagram. I will be getting back into the podcasting world later this year. I hope to see you all there. Enjoy the rest of this wonderful, beautiful conference for wonderful, beautiful weirdos.